Hello. We're back. Welcome to season 4. I don't know what episode it is at this point anymore. I think we're on 5, 6,
Seven.
5, 7. Just see, I don't know. Just kidding. Episode 7 of Rewind with Ro. I'm your host, Ro Carter, and my amazing co-host, Rob Smith. How are you, my friend?
I am great. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Miami's got a little cold front, so people don't know how to act.
Hey, it's the same here in LA.
Really? Okay. They've experienced. We got some cold weather coming down here from up east, and everybody's got like big ass jackets on, which is so funny to see them. Although there are people that are on like a break because there's a hotel by where I live, and so people got some outfits like like no girl, I don't care. We still gonna wear our outfits as if we're going out. I'm like, it's 55 degrees out. You better put a jacket on and stop playing. I'm trying to be cute. So. It's been very interesting watching that. There's a book fair today, which I'm excited because we're going to do Wicked. So the guy who wrote Wicked, I heard him speak about his book and other books that he's done as part of Wicked, which really blew my mind. So I won't go into that. But when we do Wicked, the movie, my brain, so many questions I asked myself as a black man, and if I was to write something like that and what I could get away with, it just blew my mind what he was able to do. Anyway. Can't wait to talk about Wicked. Trust me, I'm gonna have a lot of stuff. I'm gonna blow my brain is frustrated. So anyway, that's a whole nother episode.
I haven't watched it yet, and I feel bad.
Neither have I. No, I haven't seen it. We're gonna see it. We'll see it tomorrow. Gladiator. I heard two amazing things. I heard Wicked was good, and I heard Gladiator was good. Like nomination good for Denzel. I was like, get out of here. I was like, that's what I'm hearing. So that's our two movies for the following. We come back.
What about Piano Lesson?
Yeah, we're gonna fit on it. We're gonna work it. We're gonna fit on it. We got Piano Lesson. We got Shine next week. We're gonna do a special show next Tuesday. Yes, we got Koku coming on board saying hello finally. So it's coming together for the holidays, people. For the holidays. And then we are hitting December hard. We're going back to back to back. That's what we're gonna do. So anyway, that's all we got. That's all we got for you today. I picked a movie that did come out in the summer, but it was re-released on Netflix recently. And I didn't see this movie. I heard about it, but I was like, let me see. It's called Rob Peace, and it's directed by Chiwetel Ejiofor. He was in 12 Years a Slave. He's done a million movies. Red Belt's one of my favorite movies. If you like martial arts, it's a really good movie. He was in that. So this is his second directorial debut. So shout outs to him. He's doing all true life stories and then just bringing them to life. So I enjoyed this movie. We'll see what Rob thinks about it. But I like to say, I'll tell you what I'm straight out. I enjoy this going into this. No pressure on Rob. He's going to tell you. He's going to do what he do. But anyway, basically this movie, Rob Peace, is based on the true story of the brilliant young man named Rob Deshaun Peace, whose father was incarcerated for a crime he claims he never committed. Rob was raised by his mom, who provided opportunities for him to get into better education, which would help him later on get into Yale, also help him appeal his father's case. So what did you think about the film,
Rob? I love that they made a story that is a true story. And it
Hold on, let's do this. I'm sorry. Let's start this over. My bad. Rob, going into this movie, what did you think the movie was about? Just based on the poster board alone, you see you have the young brother, Jay Will. He plays Rob Peace, Chiwetel Ejiofor's son in the movie. And so we watch him from a young age bond with his dad, and his dad is incarcerated. So then you kind of see him kind of grow up and then still going back and forth with his dad, but they really don't have that unity that they had when he was younger. Mm-hmm. And so when I saw the poster, I was like, oh, I wonder what this is about. I thought it was more based on Chiwetel's character and how he was dealing with incarceration. I didn't know it was going to be the other way around. So when I was surprised, I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I was also like, can Jay Will really hold this character? Because he is a big part of the film. So I thought he did a great job in that too. So I was really shocked about what the film was going into because I knew nothing about it, just based on the pictures alone of what I saw. But I'm glad I clicked on it. So what did you think when you saw first going in versus what you actually went into?
Yeah, well, I had ironically not heard of the film, which I'm embarrassed to admit. I should have known about it here at blackfilm.com. But of course, I like to walk into films and not read too much about it. I don't want to read reviews because I don't want to be like subject to someone else's opinion before I get to digest it myself. So I was not aware of what it was about. I didn't know who Rob Peace was. I didn't know his story. I do love, again, that they decided to make a film that is depicting the true life of someone who actually went through this experience. I think, like I've said before, these kind of Black stories need to be told. I love to see Black stories of every type being told. I enjoyed it somewhat. There were some things about it I didn't absolutely love, so I don't want to say it was my favorite movie ever. But yeah, it was a good story to be told.
Let me ask you something. Did you feel it's like the story we've heard over and over and over again?
No.
Okay, so what made it unique to you?
I think the again, being that it's a true account of someone's experience, I love the fact that it was the story of this young Black man who, despite the odds or despite the circumstance he was in, he was able to make it into an Ivy League school and to kind of determine his own path. But of course, I don't want to say too much because I'm sure you're going to break it down. But of course, he's faced with obstacles because he's not like some rich, wealthy kid who comes from, a legacy environment at this school. So he does have to do things for himself and for the benefit of his father, to make this lifestyle work for him. So I enjoyed the story itself. And again, like being that it's a true story, I guess there's some elements to it that would be hard to just fantasize about and come up with. So it's a beautiful story.
Yeah, and I want to shout out once again, Black women stepping up. Chiwetel's character is basically sentenced to life in prison, and so it's at that point, like, what do you do, right? And as a mom, you're like, hey, you know what? I got to do what's right by my son and do right by him. I love that she kind of let her son live in terms of like, hey, do whatever you need to do for your dad, but you also need to do right by yourself at the same time. And so I love that she really reinforced that. How much do you think that played in him being able to get into Yale or just accomplish anything that he was doing?
I think it played a lot into it because we find out more later. I'll let you.
Yeah, we're trying to like tiptoe around, without giving the big things away. But
yeah, I think his mom, like who played by Mary J. Blige, who did a phenomenal job. Her not giving him too much information as he was developing and becoming a young adult allowed him the freedom and ability to like create his own path and not go down the path that the journey of his father's life, coming up in a rough neighborhood. So I think that was a great choice by his mom to kind of give him the freedom and the space to develop into someone who used their intelligence and their wit to create the journey that was their life beyond the environment that they were raised in. So I love that about the story.
Yeah, it's always curious to me. I've dated a couple of women that had kids, and like one that their father was incarcerated, going through some stuff, and then one that just it didn't work out. It is what it is. And so I've always wondered, like, that's not my child, right? So who am I to step in and say what's right or what's wrong? But they've always advocated for like, hey, I want them to have a father figure in their life. But I'm like, if this guy isn't doing the right, like, let's say he did do the crime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that person still need to be a part of their life, and what kind of influence will they be for them? I'm always worried about that. So what do you think about that? Is that a thin line, or is like, it's none of my business?
Nah, I think those are definitely choices that a parent has to make. If I say this all the time to the young people in my family: if you commit a crime, don't come running to me to lie for you, because I'm not going to do it. If you make a bad choice, you have to deal with the consequences of making a bad choice. I have young people in my life who've made bad choices, and they're dealing with the consequences of those choices. And now they're kind of becoming mentors to some of the other young people in our family, because they've realized, what, I made a bad choice and I didn't have to make this choice. And everyone was pushing me away from making this choice. And now he's dealing with the consequences of it. Right. So, I think that a parent absolutely has the right to say, look, I don't want you to get caught up in that world, so I'm going to keep you over here. Like, I don't think that's a bad choice.
Yeah. There's another part of the film where Jay Will's character, Rob Peace, he gets into Yale, right? And so he's leaving he's not leaving his habits behind, but he's leaving his crew behind. And I was kind of a part of that. I wasn't crazy like that. I wasn't hanging out like that. But I knew people around the way that I was like, when I got a chance to get into college, I was like, I got to get out of here. And it's always interesting when you see people that like are stuck, especially in Jersey where he grew up. Like those are some of those pits that you just can never leave, or because people are making fun of you. Oh, bro, you're gonna be one of those nerdy kids, bro, and go do this and do that. So did you have any of that growing up? Like when you got into school, you one of the first people that got into school in your family. I was the first one in my immediate family, so that was like a big thing for me to like, hey, I want to get out of here and see things and not be stuck in a place and see what else is out there. I love how they touched on that in the film because I think that is tough, especially if you're not an athlete. When you're just going in there just on your knowledge to go into a school and try to fit in, you kind of cube in a circle. It's like, how do I get in that hole where I'm not going to find my peers at all, especially at that time, right? That he's almost, I'm 2 years older than him, I believe. Yeah, I'm 2 years older than him when he passed away. So I was like, that blew my mind. It's like similar. I mean, he's a very smart young man, but biochemist, that blew my mind, just what he was able to do, but never saw what could actually happen, right? When you can be so smart but not know your own demise sometimes, it's really crazy. I mean, it blows my mind when people go through that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like he's so smart, but he was so smart, but yeah, I think there was an element of thinking he was smart enough to do everything and manage his way through it and not really thinking about what could be on the other side of it. That was interesting to watch as well. But yeah, I'm the third of four. I was not the first to go to college, but I was the first to finish it. And I think that that's fine too, because all of my siblings found success in their own ways without having to finish college, which I think is great. But yes, to your point, there was some separation anxiety for me, like leaving some of the friends I had, but I'm still actually friends with Koku. Still friends with a lot of the people who I grew up with before that experience. And I was a much different person after the college experience than I was before I walked into those doors, because that development happened very quickly. So but interesting, I went to a HBCU, but for him to go to an Ivy League school and be one of the only people of color there, and to be to integrate himself into the environment as well as he did, because one, he was smart, two, he was very socially capable, and then three, he became the go-to for weed,
for his hustle. So well, I guess we give it away. Like he winds up getting a hustle out there because he's trying to help his dad out. And which I respect. It was a different hustle, and there's a great conversation he has with his roommate, who's a white kid, and he's like, "Well, I don't know if I would have that same, responsibility or approach it like that for my father." And it's really about the relationships. I don't like how, and we talked about this behind the scenes, but I really don't like the manipulation of Okafor's character, his dad, being like, "Hey, you promised me you're gonna get me out of here," and so the legal system is messed up. I remember my old one of my trainers at the gym I used to work at. He used to tell me when the Central Park 5 movie came out on Netflix, I was talking about it. I was like, "Hey, did you watch Central Park 5?" He was like, "Brother," he was an old guy. He was like, "Man, I lived that shit." And I was like, "My bad." And he was deep about it. He's like, "Man, back in the day when I grew up, if you weren't in before the lights came on, they would grab you up on the street. Cops would just grab you up and put you in a lineup. Like you were just playing. And they was like, 'Hey, come here, kid.' And they grab you up. And then next thing you know, you're in a lineup and they try to say, 'We'll give you a couple of dollars. You'll be fine.' And then, next time you didn't see your boy anymore. And they didn't tell your parents, nothing. I was like, wait, I was like, what? He's like, it was crazy. He's like, New York back in the day was crazy. I was like, and it blew my mind because you kind of seeing this similar. Later on, you find out that things weren't matching up. When you can't afford the right lawyer to do an investigation. Also in times, I mean, you still see it nowadays, but more people catch on because of the internet and and people can see, oh, this isn't right. But back then you didn't have those outlets. So if someone just wanted to,
everybody has a cell phone now too.
Exactly. And if someone wanted to accuse you of something back then, it was your word against the white man, let alone the powerful white man, which was the cops and the police. And so we've had history of stories going on and on about that. But that's just a crazy time. So your brain is just, that's the one thing I like about this movie. You're thrown all over the place in terms of like, wow, I feel for this character. I still don't know if this character did it or not, but just understanding the circumstances of like, hey, we don't have all the information. And so how are you going to put this guy in prison if you don't have all the correct information? But hey, it's another shut and closed case. Let's move on and kind of go from there. So it's really interesting to learn. Our justice system has got a little bit better, not great, but a little bit better for minorities. But you get to see a piece of that here. And so it's a great reminder, regardless of where you come from, how smart you are, you still have to deal with things based on the color of your skin, which is crazy still to this day. But I'm glad that that's a reminder there, because sometimes, man, I'm scared, especially with the new regime coming in, is that all these things are going to be wiped away. And you're like, what are you talking about? That never happened. It was never, I'm like, what? Slavery? They wanted to go across the seas in those boats voluntarily. Silly black man.
Revisionist history is coming.
Yeah, right. So it's just one of those things. I really love how it touched on that. Anything that jumped out to you on the screen, whether it be him in college or just his knowledge in the chemistry room when he was challenged. There's a scene when he's challenged by one of the other guys there that are senior. That senior, he's a sophomore, and his professor allows him to kind of work on some lab work. And so he goes in there early, and the guy's like, yo, who are you? And it's one of those things like, why are you here? When he had a do-rag on, which, listen, let me tell you something. Don't wear a do-rag. People won't ask you weird questions. That's just my point of view. But hey, that's another story for another day. What do you think? Were there any points that really stood out to you in the movie, especially when he was in college and stuff like that? That maybe things that were similar to your life or what you had to deal with?
Well, I was going to say the big thing for me, and this was what, again, made it a little bit difficult to watch. And I think this is, I guess, a trap you can fall into when trying to create a biopic, because you have so much content that you have to squeeze into like an hour and 40 minutes or 2 hours. Like there's so much of a story that has to be told. And I think for me, it was a little disjointed at times, and it felt like it jumped really fast, and we really didn't get enough information or enough experience in certain areas for the story to flow as smoothly as I needed it to, because we go from him being, of course, a very young child to him being a young adult to him being in college to him trying to get his father out of prison to him being an adult selling real estate to him. It's like there was so much squeezed into the space of a film that at some points to me it felt disjointed, and it felt like the story wasn't connected as well as it could have been. And that to me is the thing that I was saying was a little bit difficult, but overall I did enjoy it.
Yeah, because there's a part, so he graduates, some things happen in school, and then he was always about the community, right? And he wanted to rebuild his community in Newark. And I was like, oh, that's great. But he picked the wrong time to build the community. And he gets crushed when the house market crashes. And I remember I was like, oh, and I was like, no. I literally was, when that happened on the screen, I was like, no, is he going to get hit by I was like, no. And I was like, oh, that's right. This is a true story. I was like, oh, this sucks. And, one of his other boys invested all his life savings in it. And it was just like, you just saw all their good ideas. And so you can't win, right? If I do it the right way, I'm screwed. If I do it the wrong way, I'm screwed. Like how do you manage to survive in life when everything you're trying to do to survive is just like there's no winning. There's no winning at all. And so you feel this hopelessness, especially for the characters, and for you kind of put yourself in them shoes. Like what do you do now, right? What do you go back to what you know best, or you just say, hey, you know what? It is what it is. Keep on moving. So that's a tough part, especially when you had a taste of freedom and then just flexibility in your life where you're not relying on other things or you're doing things the right way. And so that was a deep part for me in the film. I was like, damn, man, his dad's going through this stuff later on. Fast forward later, not to give it all away, but his dad has a brain cancer. And so they're battling with each other about where they are in their relationships, because he's finding out, hey, man, it doesn't look like I'm going to get out or maybe live long enough to to see freedom. So that's a tough part too. And that guilt of you being the child, being like, hey, I want to be here for my father. What do I do? You know, and I'm neglecting my mom at the same time, not respecting her space. So there's a lot of animosity going on. I think that they didn't really touch on enough between Mary J. Blige's character, his mom, and Okafor's character as well. So that was missing. I feel was a lot disjointed because you needed to build that base of showing how strong of a mom she was. You just had to come in and say a couple words. No, give Mary J. some love. Give her some young love and show what's going on. So I agree with you parts.
To that point too, like we were able to establish a really great understanding of his relationship with his friends, like when he comes back and they do the real estate together. And I think that was another big added piece of the pressure for him, because he had convinced his friends who didn't have the life he had. They were like still in the hood, still grinding. Now they had families, and they invested everything they had into this real estate business with him to try and like turn their neighborhood around and like rebuild the homes and, you know, give people an opportunity to live in a community that was like built back up. And then when the crash happened, he saw his friends losing everything that they had hustled for, and that they had saved to build for their families. So there was an added amount of pressure for him to figure out a solution to solve it. And I think that part of the story progressed really well, because we did, like to your point, see the progression of those relationships and understand the pressure that was on him to figure it out after the market crashed. And I do agree, like we start to find out a little bit more about his mom's involvement in kind of shielding him from the truth of things that really happened with his dad, that could have given him the space to have a better relationship with his father, but she keeps information from him just to keep him on the right path. But we don't get enough of the story from his experience with his mom to really understand it. So a lot of the relationship to me felt like, and to your point earlier, the experience with his dad in the jail, it felt like an attack on the son rather than an attack on him having to continue living his life knowing that it might be cut short in jail. It felt like he just hated his son. And I was like, what is happening? I'm so confused. But again, I just think we needed a little bit more, but they had to tell a story from him being 7 to him being 30 or whatever. So it was just a lot packed into the film.
Yeah. And like I said, the bond, you're missing that piece that you get later in the film that you had early in the film, and they're trying to make up for lost time. But maybe they're trying to put us in the shoes of what was actually missing, right? Because they didn't have that time together. So maybe it feels forced because it is forced. You know, at that point, you're not, I'm trying to live my life. You know, he was secretly living his life he didn't tell anybody, the girl he was dating, any of his friends, his dad was incarcerated. So he kept that all a secret. So maybe that was a way of them showing that on film, how they felt, because it was a really disorganized relationship as you get older. And that's typical, right? When teens get a certain age, they're not your, hey son, come here anymore. It's like, hey dad, oh, don't touch me. I got to do some things. Leave me alone. I got to close the door now. We're locking doors in the house now. What's going on? We're locking doors? You know, it's like stuff like that. So as you grow and you get into your own kind of mode of who you are as a man or as a person. And so I think that was happening because he was finding his own life, man. He was falling in love with a young lady. He was finding his path in school. Like he really had some opportunities. I love another good part that I do love about the film is how they showed him giving back to his high school. And he was helping out with the swim team, and he was helping out with education, doing a class, and to young other Black kids, so they were inspired. And so I love that. I always remind myself, when you look at the wall, I'll never forget when I was a kid, and you used to see all the presidents on the wall, and you never saw any women or you never saw any people of color. But now these young kids, they will see one person of color, but it changes your mind. What was that show? Bridgerton. I'll never forget the brother from Bridgerton. He only did one season because they weren't going to pay him for that second season. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. But I'll never forget, he did a commercial when I lived in New York, and I would come out of the train station, and I never thought about this until I saw representation and how important Black representation is for certain things and products. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, I picture myself in that watch. I never pictured myself in this type of watch before, but I saw somebody that looked like me or represented me, and I was like, oh, yeah, maybe that sounds good. And it just blew my mind. It was like, you got to remind yourself, it's like, they've only showed us one way for so long, but your brain really starts to grow and flourish when you see people that look like you in other places. Like when I travel, I'm like, yo, there's one thing about the Black Nod, but when you see your people having fun and like, hey, this is what we do all the time. Like, oh, wow, we travel, we enjoy life, we know what's going on, we're speaking different languages, we know about the community, we know about saving, we know about investing, all that stuff. It's like, wow, I've been sheltered in this little cocoon all my life. There are other people that look like me that are doing these things and enjoying a good time. So I always love when I'm reminded of that. And I think that's a big reminder to take from this film. It's like, hey, you can do more than what is, in around your 5 to 10 feet,
Yeah. And I think that a big part of this film was him wanting to go back into his community and him wanting to be an inspiration to people in his community and wanting to build up his community. He didn't want to just leave and then never come back. And I think that was a big part of his story. And his mom kept telling him, like, no, leave the neighborhood. Yeah, come back to the neighborhood. And he's like, no, I want to save the neighborhood. And she's like,
isn't that crazy? Yeah, it's just like, I love that part of him because, it's that unselfishness, but at the same time, it's like, man, just get out. But I wonder if that was part of the guilt because he couldn't help his father as much as he wanted to. So the next best thing was, this is where my father grew up. This is his roots. So if I can at least give back to the community, then I feel I'm making up for what I couldn't give my father. Yeah. And you know what? That's deep, player. That's what I did levels. I did levels there. Deepness.
You go, Ro. Let me see if I can do it.
That's all I got. That's all I got. No, we're not doing that. Oh, boom. Boom. There we go.
There you go. All for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Anything you want to add?
No. Again, it's a fun watch. It's a good watch just to learn about the story of a real person who had these real lived experiences, and it's a Black story that's an inspiring story to be told. But again, it's a tragedy. It is a tragedy because he doesn't heed the advice that he's given, and the result is the result. But it's a true story, so people know he dies. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're gonna Google Rob Peace before they watch it.
All right. Let me watch it first before they Google it. I watched it first.
You said earlier he was this age when he died. So
I didn't say died. Does it die?
You said he was my age, 2 years older than me when he died.
I think I said he was 2 years older than me when things happened. I don't think I said the exact word died.
You said that.
We're gonna go back to the video. You know what? I'm gonna rewatch a video. What point?
I think we can rewatch it. That's doable. It's live.
Yeah, I'm gonna rewatch it. I'm gonna make sure. God, I'm gonna text you too. I'm like, all right, we'll see. Nah, and then I have to apologize to my girlfriend because she says I do shit like that all the time. I'm like, no, I didn't say that. You did.
You did. I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Hey, and then that's what she's. Yes. I'll take that 3%. I'll take it.
Take it.
Anyway, all right. I highly recommend check out Rob Peace on Netflix. That's Rob Smith over there, by the way, a different person. We will be back. We're going to do a special show again Tuesday night. I don't know what time yet. What time are you thinking?
I don't know. 6.
Whenever Coco can do. That's
Pacific 9.
Yeah, so it'll probably be like 6:30, 9:30, something like that. 9:30 East Coast, 6:30 West Coast. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. And then again, December we'll have Gladiator, we have the piano lesson, we have Wicked. So a lot of good things to come. And that's it. Thank you guys. Have a safe week. We'll do a happy holidays next week. But if anybody's not watching next week, happy holidays. Thank you.